We're going to go to the AFC West and start with, to me, the obvious last place team in this division, the Las Vegas Raiders. They're going to go 4-13. They're not a very good football team. So, look, Max Crosby is one of the 3 or 4 best pass rushers in the NFL, with obviously TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, and Nick Bosa, as good as they come. And the Raiders defense, to their credit, improved drastically last year with Antonio Pierce, who ended up going from being the interim coach, and then because of the team's success, really surprising success in that stretch, nearly, kind of sniffing the playoffs to a certain degree, ends up becoming the full-time head coach. Here's my issue with the Las Vegas Raiders. They have the worst quarterback room in the NFL, and it's not even close. If Gardner Minshew is your starter, you're kind of screwed. Now, if Gardner's your backup, man, you're in good shape. Gardner's a really good backup, as we saw last year with the Indianapolis Colts. If Gardner's your starter, you're in bad shape. If Aiden O'Connell's your starter, you're in worse shape. Devontae Adams, I think, is going to get dealt at the trade deadline. Who knows? Maybe it's to the Jets. Maybe it's to somebody else. Who knows? It's not going to be the Chiefs. There's no way the Raiders are going to send him there to their division rival. Listen, Brock Bowers is a freak out of Georgia. I've seen the kid play in person. He's as good as advertised. He just doesn't have a quarterback throwing the ball right now. That's the issue for the Raiders. They lost Josh Jacobs in the offseason. I don't buy this team whatsoever to be one of the worst teams in the National Football League. Third place in the division is this is kind of not a playoff sleeper, but a sleeper team that's going to kind of catch some people off guard. The Denver Broncos. They're going to go 8-9. They're not going to make the playoffs. I have questions about Bo Nix. I do. But he's with Sean Payton. Sean Payton makes anything work. So he gets Drew Brees. We all know the story. Drew Brees had the shoulder injuries. He teams with Sean Payton. And not to take any credit away from Drew Brees. He's one of, in my mind, the 10 greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. But I do not see Drew Brees as a Super Bowl champion, record-breaking quarterback without the brilliance of Sean Payton, who, in his last year with the New Orleans Saints, after Brees retired, used 4 quarterbacks that season, and the Saints almost made the playoffs at 9-8. Listen, Denver is very thin at wide receiver, but I do like some of their defensive pieces. They played a lot better defensively at the end of the season after obviously giving up 70 to the Dolphins in week 3 of 2023. Listen, if they can, to me, this is a reaction to what I think Russell Wilson's going to be with my Steelers, which is fine, and that nothing more than that. And Bo Nix, for some of the limitations I see, as well as some of the strengths I see, there's a reason he was a first-round quarterback. I think that duo will work, and I think the Denver Broncos could be a sneaky team this season. I think they're going to win a game against the Chiefs this year. I really, really do. If they can win a game last year with Russell Wilson against Patrick Mahomes, I think they can do so, albeit with a rookie. But Bo Nix with Sean Payton is a good tandem, a solid tandem in that division. The Broncos come in third place. In second place, and I think a team that is going to shock a lot of people, the Los Angeles Chargers, who are not only going to make the playoffs, but do so by going 12-5. And here's why. Justin Herbert, to me, is clearly one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the National Football League today. Arm strength is crazy. Accuracy is really good. Mobility's there. He's got the perfect, sort of frame to be a quarterback. He's 6'6", can see over the line. You've got Rashawn Slater coming back. The Chargers have really put an emphasis on bolstering the offensive line this year, adding Joe Alt in the draft, who's clearly the best offensive lineman in this past draft. Put him on the opposite side of Rashawn Slater. You obviously have the running game there, which Jim Harbaugh excels with the running game. And defensively, the Chargers were one of the worst teams in the NFL last year because Brandon Staley is probably the worst coach in the NFL a season ago. Jim Harbaugh, albeit he's an offensive guy, he's going to get that side of the ball fixed. You saw what Michigan was, albeit it's college football, but you saw what Michigan was throughout the course of last season and the course of Jim Harbaugh's time in Ann Arbor. I think he's going to bring that culture. And here's what we know about Jim Harbaugh. He goes to San Diego State. They go from terrible to really good. He goes to Stanford. They go from being a joke in college football to beating Pete Carroll in USC and being not necessarily a national power, but a very respectable program. Then he goes to the San Francisco 49ers, a garbage franchise with a perceived bust in Alex Smith. NFC Championship in 2011, Super Bowl in 2012, NFC Championship game in 2013. And then he goes to Michigan, who was kind of average in what wasn't a very good Big Ten, turns them into national champions in his last 3 years there. They made the college football playoff and beat Ohio State all 3 years. I love Jim Harbaugh. I love Justin Herbert. Put them together. That Chargers team is going to do some special things this year. Again, I get that they don't have that number one guy at wide receiver. Maybe they add somebody at the deadline. Who knows? Maybe somebody steps up for them and shocks some people. I love this Chargers team coming into this season as a solid rock solid playoff team. They will come in second, and that leaves the obvious. Number one is the Kansas City Chiefs. What are we talking about? 13-4. I think they'll slip up against the Broncos. They could lose a game potentially to a Cincinnati Bengals in week 2. I could see that occurring. I think they'll lose a game to the Chargers this year. But listen, this and maybe lose to the Bills because the Bills always beat the Chiefs in the regular season. They just never beat them in the playoffs. Mahomes is a man out for revenge. Mahomes is out there in a situation where a season ago, the Chiefs, it was just because of the limitations at wide receiver, we got to play it safe. We got to not turn the football over, mistake-free football, and Mahomes kind of play a little bit of Tom Brady ball control in some respects, rely on our great defense, and they win the Super Bowl. Now, the defense, I thought, did get worse by losing L'Jarius Sneed to the Tennessee Titans, but they replaced L'Jarius Sneed as the number one corner with Trent McDuffie, the number one corner, who was the best number 2 corner in the league last year, and actually outplayed Sneed in the Super Bowl against the San Francisco 49ers. So he is more than ready to take that number 1 spot as the Chiefs' best lockdown guy on the outside. They still got a great interior defensive line, headlined, of course, by Chris Jones, who they kept in free agency. And again, offensively, we know who Mahomes is. We know Andy Reid. Travis Kelce, while he may be getting a little bit older, is still a guy who's he may not feel like he's 22. There you go, Swifties. Necessarily, but still very productive. We saw what he did in the playoffs last year. The Chiefs wide receiving room, I still don't love, but it's better than last year by adding Xavier Worthy, who I didn't love out of the draft out of Texas, but hey, he's with Andy Reid and Mahomes. They can make him work. And you're able to add Hollywood Brown, who's never had elite quarterback play in his life. Again, excuse me, Lamar was not an elite quarterback early in his career. I think he is now. He's got Mahomes now. Kelce, of course, to take away take away some of the pressure on the inside. To create opportunities for guys on the outside. Listen, why in God's name would I bet against Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid? A defense is still really good. Spags is one of the best DCs in the NFL. I mean, come on. They're still great. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.